Apologies for that easy.
So, where do we want to start, Jarek? Started the thing, so it's our turn to start.
Yep.
All right, I guess we should start with basic world setup. The year is, well, Jarek, you said it so that you would be, what age?
Around 80s.
Because Christoph's around your age, I assume Gregor's around mine, or vice versa, depending.
When I rolled for Christoph's age, it came out at 94.
Okay, and how old was he? About 90?
He's on the 80s to 90s range.
So what year will that be? What's your current age? 23, so plus 67 years. So like 2084?
Yeah, I'm 2080s.
Yeah. So, Argonauts is set in the 2080s, post-World War III. And after the... Did you really stop it? Oh. And after the advent of the next step in human evolution called Neos.
Yep.
Technology-wise, it's relatively grounded future tech. Things that seem like they could happen within the next 50, 60 years, given a good war in between.
Self-driving cars are ubiquitous.
Yeah.
We have Gauss rifles.
The Internet of Things is in full effect. Even we have exosuits.
Yeah,
Exosuits are viable. And one of the largest discoveries of the last 80 years in this setting was the discovery of what, cold fusion, I think we said, for Phoenix.
Yeah.
Was the discovery of a cold fusion reactor. There's only one or two in operation currently, but because no one else knows how to build them. But they provide a lot of clean, basically free energy to a huge amount of people within the United States.
And probably as trusted as nuclear power plants are now.
Yeah.
And nuclear power plants
They're
are about
very
as trusted as coal plants are now.
Yeah. In fact, if anything, the cold fusion reactor is very recent.
Yeah.
Last 20 years, easily.
Yeah. And the first one blew up, and it took a little time to make another one after that.
Other major event. The city of Detroit was completely wiped from the face of the earth after a cold fusion reactor disintegrated everything in a several-mile radius, which gives birth to the main city of our setting, New Detroit. Because, you know what? As much as Detroit gets shit on, it's a major, important U.S. city.
Yep, New Detroit. Future city built with
is the first
forward
city
planning.
Yes, it's the first city truly built with all the advances in technology since World War III. Buildings are taller. The roads have probably electrical stuff laid in them. It is a true city of the future, unlike the rest of the world, which is much like in that intermediary stage where not everything has been retrofitted yet.
Yeah, because the implementation always lags behind.
And also, war destroyed a lot of our infrastructure. The state of the United States, to people within the United States, is not much different. They don't think it is. But, as is obvious to most outside observers, the United States has become very much a late-stage Rome, wine and circuses affair. The news media is cleverly, minimalistically, but completely controlled. As is social media, and even to the extent that they can, personal interactions.
Things they did to get voter turnout up and make people feel like they were contributing more to the economic system, the political system. Things like the election is now a show called The Election that runs every 4 years.
Yes, it is a literal game show.
Or a reality TV show.
Yes. We have abandoned first past the post voting at this stage. The top two voters are selected, the top two winners by aggregate are selected as the president and vice president.
Honestly, The Apprentice style competition show where a candidate gets dropped every week, and as they
takes
compete in
runs for what, about a full year?
Simulate, yeah, basically it runs the election cycle.
Yeah, people are really invested in it.
Yeah, they vote in because basically they realize American Idol has a better voter turnout than the presidency.
Yeah, if you consider people that watch American Idol in ratio to people that vote for American Idol. it's probably in the 90% area, whereas actual voter turnout's like less than 50%, I think.
Yeah.
It's scary. But
plus you can see it as you vote on TV.
In the intermediary period after World War III, I believe, right? Actual superheroes did begin to emerge? Or was that in the intermediary period before World War III?
Before World War III.
Oh, okay. That's when that's when the golden age, so as it were, of superheroes occurred. This is when you had, and the main superhero of that was, does he have a superhero name? I kind of want to go with like Blue Dragon. Or like White Dragon.
Sonny was honestly, I don't think Sonny was.
Oh, he would be post actually.
Yeah. He's post Argonauts.
Well, that's when the era of classic superheroes
basically
happened.
People with superpowers happened,
and
the government said we're going to come up.
Well, first of all, then the government was unable to stop them without substantial military force from doing what they wanted to do.
So they basically just freelanced it out. So
they're like, hey, we'll pay you a salary. You've got to stay within rules and regulations.
Yep.
And that
was mostly a measure to take while they came up with a better solution.
This better solution being introduced during World War III?
Shortly before.
Only shortly before World War III was the Argonauts program, which was the
part
government's
of a greater
answer
program,
to superheroes.
Part of a greater program called the Pantheon, which is equivalent to the Army or the Navy, and is the superhuman branch of the government.
It's a unit that deals in and with superhumans. Not all of the people within Pantheon are superhumans, but they're all trained to take out superhuman threats. It's the main idea.
The vast majority are weaponized superhumans.
Yes, the vast majority are.
And the best of the best, and the SEAL Team 6,
Argonauts.
the Army Rangers of the bunch.
However, unlike the SEAL Team 6, these are a very public group. In fact, they're massively publicized for the government's sake. The members are given a decent amount of autonomy, but they do have to take on government projects.
There is red tape.
There's a lot of red tape for them because the government can't be held accountable for the actions of certain superheroes, or they don't want to be. Other major advancements of the last...
They are held accountable, so they don't want them taking...
Yeah, that's why I said they don't want to be held accountable. Other important discoveries / are robots a thing? A substantial thing? Or are they still... I imagine basic servitors are. Like servitor type robots.
The big thing was with the Android art
is that this is the first...
He finally made an AI that could handle that.
Yeah. The mechanics are all there, but the issue is that we can't put it together with a brain that can actually pilot a body.
Most things have been automated by this point, but it is done by
the majority of jobs.
Having a generic...
I mean, basically, all jobs are service sector now. That's already pretty much a reality, but by then it's basically like a 99 to 1% ratio.
Service or creative.
Yeah, that's what I mean by service. That is considered service sector. Actually,
it's not considered a product, like a movie.
Oh, you're right. That is product. Sorry, you're right. Yeah, yeah. Within the product industry, it's moved to mostly movies and stuff like that. Well, yeah, movies, books, etc. Because robots make everything. Shoot, there was another major discovery that we discussed that I wanted to mention while we were thinking about it, related to the tech in that gap. Oh, shoot, what was it? This is gonna bother me now because I wanted to say it just a second ago, but
what area was it in?
It was kind of a global level technology. It's just one of the minor major departures. Oh, pause it for a second. Sorry, I don't want to sit here for like 5 minutes. Well, in any case, misremembered or forgotten technologies aside. Is there anything else major for the setting? Well, I suppose then we should get to the most important people within the setting. Which, should we start with public figures or with the main characters?
How about we start with the main characters and talk public figures of the Argonauts later?
As they relate? Okay.
That'll be a topic for a future discussion or something.
So, the main characters are a group of 3 young men who, around post-college age, actually. Jason's the youngest at 22, right?
Jason's the oldest at 22.
You're right, actually. Sorry.
Will is straight up 18.
Yeah.
And Marcus is somewhere in the middle, around 19 or 20.
As you probably heard, their characters are Will Clarkson, Jason, and Marcus. Will, Jared knows him better than I do.
Will is... We could probably host an entire hour thing talking about the mechanics of Will's power.
But we'll start with the basic overview.
But generally, superhuman physicals.
Well, we can explain them. Or is that that might be a secret?
It's secret to him.
It's not. Is it secret to the viewers?
It takes time to figure out. It's sort of secret.
No, but I mean, it's not. It's explicitly stated after a certain point.
Yeah, but the viewers would learn things as they learn things.
Okay.
About his powers.
Okay.
But I
mean, then we won't mention
spoilers. This whole thing is spoilers.
True. So should we open up the spoilers then?
At least vaguely.
Yeah. Well, and he also, on top of general superhuman physicals, he has he's immune to most powers that don't have an obvious physical effect.
Yeah, that's actually important. He cannot be. He's
things like telekinesis, telepathy.
Immutable.
Yeah, things like telekinesis, telepathy. If you start on him, don't work. He is unaffected. He can't be directly affected by powers.
He can't be directly targeted by a power.
Super strength works fine.
Yeah,
hitting him with like an object thrown with telekinesis is fine. But if you try to pick him up with telekinesis, nothing happens.
And the reason behind that is both of those have the same source, in that his body is following. And the simplest way to say it, and it's a little oversimplified, but his body follows his expectations of himself.
It's not a 100% conversion.
There are limits.
Yes, there are limits, but
it runs through. It can get tired.
But for the most part, he's not immune to damage, but things that aren't damage, he tends to
things that don't put him down.
And things he wouldn't think of. Is the other thing. It's a very scattered form of immutability.
He doesn't suffer from internal injuries, for example.
Or he could, for instance, he could walk into a room full of poisonous gas.
That's invisible.
Yeah, if he didn't realize it was poisonous gas, or even if he just thought it was smoke, he would be unharmed. He would have no more issue than if it were smoke.
He can take punches way better than he can take bullets because of the expectation that a bullet would hurt him.
Yes. And the same with blades.
Especially since even though he's had the power his entire life, the way it mechanically worked, it didn't really make itself known to him. Because he had nothing unexpected ever happen.
In fact, at the beginning of the show, he doesn't even know he has a power stone.
Nope, he finds out because they screen him. Military tests.
Yeah, they screen him and they're like, oh yeah, you actually performed outside of human expectations.
A little. We're going to put you through the superhuman test just to see.
But, yes, and it starts with his beginning, and the entrance into the Argonauts is that due to his sick mother and his resulting poor grades in school, he's applying for a military sponsorship for college.
What's going on with that is he used to be a pretty good student. Then his mother got sick, so he started taking care of her more than he took care of his grades in school. Yeah. And by the time it started the show, he's pretty much about to graduate, but possibly not even pass, basically.
Yeah.
Because
if he graduates,
he's not studying and he's not doing homework, and the principal knows this. He dropped out of any of the athletics programs he was in. Yeah. And as a substitute to college, he was considering military service.
Yes. I suppose that's a good intro to the character. I guess a brief rundown of him as a character. He is your relatively typical main character.
To be honest, his power developed as a justification for the typical shonen brawler.
Yes. He is a very hot-headed. He is a very hot-headed, smart, but not necessarily
book smart,
but not book smarts kind of guy. He he does what he thinks is right, and he tries to follow the law. He's probably not a killer when it comes down to hand.
He solves most of his things
without killing.
Because his punches are less fatal. Yes. Even at their level,
equally
are less fatal than they should be.
They kind of plateau towards knocking you out because it's what he expects them to do.
Whereas other characters Whereas the other two will typically kill their opponents.
Not always typically.
Not typically, but
Marcus, I'd say, is the most lethal easily.
Marcus is the most lethal. He works with blades and spears. I suppose we should then
talk about Marcus. Marcus is, to be clear, an African-American, 20 or so probably?
Yeah, 19 or 20.
Yeah, 19 or 20. He works with his father at a small auto body shop near the center of New Detroit.
Inner city, whereas Will would be outer city, suburbia.
And the issue being that inner city Detroit, as the inner city of most large cities, has a large gang problem, which Marcus has gotten into fights his whole life, not because he's a bad seed or anything. Fights he got into were always defending himself or someone else. But he did get into lots of fights, and he would, however, almost always win. He's just been a good fighter since as long as anyone can remember him throwing a punch.
Self-trained, but in the era of the internet and mass information, self-trained means you took an online dojo.
He actually does online dojos, yes, and he takes it very seriously.
His typical afternoon would be around 18
in a couple
to 19
hours of training.
Would be he goes to the train yard, pops up a video on his laptop or phone, and follows.
However, because he's not a complete ascetic, he's also a massive fan of martial arts movies. I mean, where else do you get the inspiration to learn to do something like that? But his ability is to generate fairly large amounts, even from the start, of metal, quote unquote. I did a little thing with my fingers, but you guys can't see that because it's on video, because it's on audio, not video.
Yeah, code. These characters all have code names in the government. Will would be Beowulf at the beginning. His is Vulcan.
Vulcan, yes.
God of the Forge, because he can summon metal constructs.
Yes. Yeah, the metal appears to just have
and
iron-like
has some
property.
amount of telekinesis over them as well.
Oh, yes, also. He does have control over the metal. It is, and it generally has the properties of iron or steel, though beginning. He has the
eventually opens up to most natural metals and alloys.
Yeah.
And then eventually
expand
to beyond
as he goes through. But Marcus is a very is he the quiet type?
He's the focused type.
Yeah, I think that's actually a better way to put it. He's a very serious person.
He doesn't joke around a lot.
Yeah, he takes fighting. He takes everything he does very seriously.
Small talk is not his thing.
No. He's not necessarily an awkward person. He just doesn't engage in small talk. He was motivated to join the military after he attempted to take a bit of gang justice into his own hands, and was offered it as an amnesty clause.
Yes, because there is an amnesty program where people with superpowers caught doing vigilante.
Yes, this isn't offered to just any criminal.
Will be
the higher functioning ones.
Be granted amnesty in return for joining in the Pantheon branch of the military.
The thing is a lot of the best candidates, when they only allowed people who applied, they missed out on a lot of the best candidates. You had an era of Batman. People who went outside the rules intentionally, who operated in the night, etc. But they realized that they wanted those people, so they realized that the amnesty program was the way to go there.
If they caught them, they hired them. Kind of like how we handle hackers nowadays.
Yep. Catch and release, I think, is the term. No, that's a different thing entirely.
Yeah.
But, and that's how Marcus gets into the program. The nature of the gang justice was, Jarek knows the backstory a little better than I do.
Well, Marcus discovered his powers at around 18. And working at an auto body shop, naturally would use them when, against his father's wishes, use them to make parts that they didn't have at the time.
His father was against it because
legal issues and everything else. It's basically pirating parts.
Yeah.
And you don't know the limitations of his power, happens when he happened to fix up a street racer's car, and the part disappeared mid-street race.
But presumably the street racer died, but the people who sponsored him,
his buds and all that stuff, yeah.
They had a grudge, which they took out on his father.
On his family in general.
Yeah.
Basically, drive-by shooting. He managed to protect everyone but him after a heated argument about doing such things in the first place. So he gives chase, ends up having a fight in a warehouse.
This is the first time he probably took on people with guns, actually.
Yeah,
This is where he realized he could actually take down.
His first time, yeah, actively fighting against criminals and stuff rather than defending himself or someone he saw or things like that.
Yeah. And of course, a police report where a guy took out, 9 or 10 armed gunmen.
I think it was 5 or 6 at the time.
5 or 6 armed gunmen is the kind of thing that attracts the government's attention with that amnesty program.
And naturally, he gets brought into it.
Yeah. And then that leaves the final character, Jason, which is kind of my little love child of doing a speedster, if I'm to be honest. And he is intentionally... I'll be pretty straightforward about it. I mean, he's kind of intentionally a Flash...
Not rip-off, honestly.
Not.
We tried to apply speedster powers differently from the Flash.
Explicitly in ways that I don't recall the Flash doing, because the Flash has done a lot of speedster applications, and I feel like most speedsters are just the Flash.
Yeah. He has a few secondary powers to go with his speedsterness.
Unlike the other two, who have very deep backstories as to why. Well, I suppose he does as well, but his isn't quite as dramatic. He feels a strong duty to take care of his family because neither of his parents are very educated. They can't hold enough of a job to really support him, and he has 2 sisters and a brother. I don't know if people are aware of this, actually, but I have thought about his family life.
Marcus does have a little brother who did get injured.
Because Marcus has 2 little sisters and a slightly younger brother. None of them are Neos. He was the lucky one.
Or at least aren't old enough to be revealed as such.
And so, in order to get in college, because he didn't want to make his parents pay for it, and he wasn't quite good enough to get a scholarship, he accepted the deal that Will is accepting now.
Will just kind of got drafted in for...
Oh, but he just got proper drafted.
Not
or he proper joined.
He wasn't going for college.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Well, he was going for military service to get the pay. He needed the paycheck, basically.
He joined for the military scholarship. He took 4 years at a leading business school, hoping to be either an accountant or an auditor. Because the reason auditor appealed to him is because when he originally went, he found out that he liked the idea of kind of catching the people responsible for these kinds of impossible to persecute crimes. The ones that don't seem like they're because they're not stealing directly or shooting or harming people, but that harm people because they steal millions of dollars. And that's actually when he toyed with a bit of vigilantism in his college years. He went around as the Red Streak, I figure. Something like that. A street name. He never gave himself an official name. His outfit was one he cobbled together from costumes he bought from a Halloween store. And the main reason he never got caught is that he knew when to run.
And he could run really fast.
Yes. The issue is that if the cops arrived, he could literally be out of there before the cops got out of their cars.
And he does, besides being a speedster, has 2 primary secondary powers.
Yes. Initially,
the first of which
is regeneration. He is aware of this one at the start of the show.
It develops pretty early on to counter the side effects of being a speedster.
Of being a faster. Yeah. The main ones being, of course, the friction burns on his skin. He's especially good at healing from fire-related damage because his body has to do it a lot. It's almost kind of like an
microfractures in his legs.
Yeah, and microfractures in his body from hitting people and such. He didn't actually realize he had this power quite until he lost his finger in a knife fight, and it was back after a couple of days.
I always gave it to he ran into a door that opened.
Something like that. Some small incident happens, and then he realizes, oh, I don't just kind of heal faster. I
heal really fast.
Heal.
And it does legitimately approach from accelerated healing into regeneration.
At the start, yeah. It will move into full regeneration later on. But at the beginning of his run, it is mostly fast healing with a tad of regeneration. He can grow parts back.
And I'm aware We found out afterwards the Flash also had accelerated healing.
Yes, but he doesn't really do regeneration.
Yeah, and Jason's accelerated healing is is of a level that it matters.
It's not a broken bone in a few minutes. It's a broken bone for most of the show. It's a broken bone in seconds.
Yeah,
he has healing. It's more in a Wolverine tier than in the
with
Flash
Speedster
tier.
applied to it.
Yeah. But and his other secondary power that he doesn't actually learn until partway through the first arc, but he gets it fairly early
through
on.
Most of the show, and it's part of it's the main part of how he deals with damage.
He is able to harness the heat he generates from moving as quickly as he does.
And vibrating as quickly as he can.
Yeah, with an application, he can generate true fireballs, which may or may not be little bits of himself that separate from himself and just instantly heal when he strikes out to throw a fireball. It's not something he thinks about. It's not something we think about too much.
Which leads into the demigod or god name of
Apollo.
Apollo.
At one point,
the burning
Apollon,
speedster.
At one point, Apollon, simply just to be a little less cliche, but I think in the long run, I do prefer Apollo to Apollon. Because Apollon's just
no one even knows who Apollon is.
It is Apollo. It's literally just it's a variant.
It's the Roman version.
It's the original spelling of Apollo.
Oh, so Apollo is the Roman version.
Maybe vice versa. I forget.
Because with all these gods, there's a Greek version and a Roman version.
But yes, Apollon is the alternate version of Apollo. So probably the Roman version, given that it's the less heard of version. Then again, Vulcan versus Hephaestus. So you can't say.
I prefer the sound of Vulcan.
Vulcan does sound cooler. Plus, Hephaestus has implications.
It's more marketable, so the government chose it.
Yeah. And also, Hephaestus has implications that I don't believe Vulcan does. Of the ugliness and such. In any case, he participated in a little bit of... The biggest thing he ever did in his vigilantism is he caught a guy who was... He managed to actually catch a gangster who was laundering money. Through largely, and it's slightly to his pride, largely through auditing skills.
Just really fast.
Yeah, because the thing was that this guy, the way he did is he buried most of his stuff in excessive amounts of paperwork, which he obtained and then parsed through in a matter of hours rather than days or weeks.
Or months.
Yeah, and you, knowing this, stepped outside of the law for a moment and found that guy and beat the hell out of him.
And by a moment, we mean a moment.
Yeah. And he is being called on, having just graduated from school. He is being called on to serve his military service. And given his vigilante work, which the government is completely aware of, because the thing speedsters are very trackable, actually. Because while it's hard to catch them, it's easy to detect them with things that detect quick motion. Mm-hmm. They were very aware of it.
I will mention that, yes, normal military scholarships have you do your military service up front, then you get to go to college.
But they want him to gather the skills from college first.
The way powers work in this universe, they develop over mental development and exploration of your powers. And they found that superhumans, or Neos as they are called in this universe, the stronger ones typically tend to be the ones who individually explored their powers rather than had a more militaristic lack of identity.
Forcing your powers doesn't really work unless you're the kind of person who would force them.
Yeah, the military break a person, rob them of their individuality, and then replace it with orders does not work for the growth of powers.
Yeah. It's kind of like being the kind of person who doesn't like playing cheese strategies in a game and then being told that that's the right way to play. You'll do it, but your heart won't be in that way, we can say.
Yeah. Following someone else's idea of how to use your powers is not the best way to use your powers in this universe.
You can get decently strong, but you'll never really...
Do we want to cover the generals?
Yeah, we can cover
how powers develop.
Well, the most substantial discovery of the last 80 years was that of the Neos, the Nielsen expected observation effect, as it stands for. Observed originally in a lab with what's that thing called? The slits test?
Yeah. It's an expansion on
quantum
the real
theory.
world quantum thing, the observation effect, that observing something
does change
affects
it.
the outcome
And the
in the
expansion
way
that
that you
this
expect
man
it
discovered
to.
was that the expectation did modify the outcome.
That's honestly like they'll do the
that's
same.
a scientific study thing.
Yeah,
but
they
it
do the
applies on a
test.
quantum level.
Yeah, it's just that applied to the quantum level, and
initially the effect was weak,
and then brought
but
above the quantum level.
Yes, and initially the effect was small, but after it was publicized, due to itself and people's expectations changing, due to the fact that they now knew that people's expectations could affect, what happens, it kind of snowballs to an extent.
Yeah, into an explosion of superpowers.
Until an explosion of, starting with one man, and the dam was kind of broken by, what was the name you gave him? I thought you had a name for him.
I had a name for him. It's one I can figure out again. Because it was done. It was created through research.
Someone in a heated argument displayed distinct telekinesis. Threw a man across the room. I assume?
Park.
Oh, threw a man across a park.
Or plaza, or public space.
Yeah,
and it took significant
police force to put him down.
The
police is fairly militarized at this point, given the fact that Neos exist. Yeah, like the police can pull out things like tranquilizers.
They send out the SWAT way sooner.
Yeah, because it's necessary way sooner in a lot of cases.
They have their anti-Neo division.
And at the time, they didn't.
It used to be in universe. It used to be the Neo effect, but then publicly, people caught on to calling them Neos.
Yeah,
and it just kind of stuck.
Yeah, that is what happened with that. Some other backronyms have occurred for people who don't know what it is, but it is a lot of people like to call it the next evolution organisms, but that is in fact just a backronym that a journal came up with.
That didn't do its research.
Yeah, and wanted to say that it stood for something relating to humans, though it does not actually necessarily.
Nope.
And after the first event of seeing someone display actual direct superhuman powers, those in the population, honestly, I'd put it around 10 or so %.
A good amount.
That have particularly strong ability to use the observation effect.
I'm not sure if it's slowed down or sped up over time, but as basically the fact that it became ubiquitous affected its rates.
Mm-hmm. But the main thing was after people saw this man use distinct, what could be described as superpowers, other people began to expect the same, which caused a rush, just a glut of superhumans. Mostly, unfortunately,
which led to the vigilantism
era. Because it happened, quite frankly, almost literally overnight. The arrival of thousands, honestly, given the scale of Earth, millions of superhumans.
Yeah.
Overnight.
Included in this bunch would probably be some of the important political figures.
Yeah.
In the show. Do you want to go into the big 3 figures that are not?
Around that would have got this in this first battle series.
Just so we're on the same page. The 3 main figures are Christoph, Gregor, and kind of John Smith. John Smith happens
He's
later.
Halfway through. I'd say Gregor and Christoph.
Gregor and Christoph are the 2 main ones. In the modern era, John Smith is in there by sheer volume.
Yeah. But, honestly, it doesn't give rise to... They don't really make a public appearance till the war.
No, they make their public appearance before the war to get support for the Argonauts program.
Actually, you're right.
Which led to them being used
2 of the most
war.
Notable before the war that appeared in the original early Argonauts program were
a couple of actually university scientists.
Yeah, and not from America originally.
At least Christoph not of American descent.
Yeah, Christoph is. I honestly imagine Gregor is expat, a foreign expat.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But they were university researchers.
Do we have a last name for Christoph yet?
No, he's always just been Christoph. He's been a mononym.
Christoph, a very intimidating man to those who meet him, though he kind of has...
He keeps a good public image by the way.
But those who meet him in person always have
he's way more intense than he should be.
Yeah.
Than just someone with his powers.
It's like someone who does good things, but whenever you look deep at them, they have crazy eyes, and you're just not Sure. But Christoph, who displayed the incredible and potentially strongest, by some standards, still
By
considered
many
the stronger,
standards, he is the
strongest,
greatest metahuman, the
the
greatest
ability to
superhuman, the
control
greatest Neo.
cells.
Yeah,
The
cellular
actions,
manipulation.
yeah, the ability to control the actions of all cells of any form of life.
Yeah, so long as it's cellular, you can control it.
Yes. Being a very feared superhuman, he was quickly snatched up by the Argonauts program.
No, he invented the Argonauts program. Him and Gregor.
Sorry.
Yeah, him and Gregor, after discovering their powers and seeing the admittedly chaotic, because while they call it the golden age of superheroes, that was because they were superheroes running around doing what they wanted. It was quite chaotic and disorganized.
It was a time of high crime rates. This would have been what, 2020, late 2020s, early 2030s?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. A time of really high crime rates, high death tolls from crime.
The people call it the golden age because there were popular people fighting crime.
I assume comics exist probably for these people.
Probably.
Just because that's kind of a classic.
Comics exist in the real world. They're going to reflect the new world.
Yeah. And some people will be willing to sell their rights.
Yeah. Money.
Not all. Not every
money.
Honestly, the government probably does.
The government doesn't even sell the rights. They just have a.
They just make their own. You're right.
Book program.
Yeah, they have their own line of comic book propaganda.
Advertising their own superheroes. Their government. Their government.
Yeah, they probably just
sponsored
straight up
superheroes
run an
and
Argonauts
such.
line.
Yeah.
Of comics.
Yeah.
Which isn't what you guys will be reading in the hopeful event, but. I considered that briefly for a moment, but that would whitewash things too much.
Oh yeah, the government whitewashes.
Yeah, the government is a bit evil. Questionably, well, honestly, not even arguably that evil by current standards, but honestly more arguable just because...
Very corrupt and very manipulative by them.
But they do kind of have a tendency to still do right by their citizens.
Yes.
They don't... well, for instance, freedom of speech is still solidly intact. All our Bill of Rights are still intact.
They're just manipulated the public such that those aren't a problem.
Those aren't a problem, yes. So some people would argue they still do right by us, but...
Mostly because they changed us.
Yes. Again, wine and circuses.
Yep.
We're provided a lot, but it only works because they've changed our public opinion massively.
Because they basically
wartime was
took
very
over the
effective
media.
for this. Honestly, probably a revival of the psyops.
What psyops?
Psyops? Oh, it's from World War I or II. Originally stood for psychological operations. And they did things like drop flyers in enemy territory, talking about the bad things that their governments had done, stuff like that. They
a
worked
really
on
epic name for external propaganda.
Well, honestly, PSYOPs actually, though they didn't advertise it while it was still in operation, did actually operate within the United States as well.
Yeah. Because we hate to admit that we have propaganda
but
for
we
some
do.
reason. I don't have a problem with propaganda. It's advertisements for the government.
It's going to happen.
It's necessary.
The problem with propaganda comes when you start modifying the truth.
Yes.
For the sake of propaganda. Which the government in Argonauts is very into.
All the time.
They whitewash... The average
The
American
results
citizen,
of the presidential election show are completely manipulated. They still go with what the people vote for. But through,
it doesn't matter.
But through social engineering, they control who the people vote for.
Yeah, they figured out who people will vote for.
Via editing, they can make a person they don't like the bad guy for a week or two, and they'll be eliminated for sure. And things like that.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
Make someone the good guy for a week or two.
Because it's reality TV. They're not showing you all the footage. They're showing you the footage you want to see.
And also, they
want you to see.
Also, the average citizen doesn't even know what happened in World War III. Not accurately.
Not accurately at all.
No. Like, it's like what people worry that we're going to become happens. Is kind of the premise for what's going on with the United States. All the stuff that kind of fringe people are worried about happening.
We're not internationally.
Is the reality.
Yeah, we're not internationally popular at all.
And honestly, the one thing that changed, one of the biggest changes is that we become a much more secluded nation.
We fake our interactions for the public, basically.
Yeah. Actors, literally actors for other countries' diplomats and things. The
These other
average United
countries
States
don't
citizen
want
still
anything to
thinks
do
that we
with us.
occupy a position around what we occupy now, where people aren't necessarily hugest fans of us.
America vaguely does, but mostly through fear than respect.
We occupy a similar position of power, not a similar position diplomatically.
No.
Because the thing is that America has Christoph.
America has
And
Christoph.
globally, people know that.
And Christoph is strong.
Locally-
We'll spend an episode talking about Christoph feats and other such
Christoph
things.
Christoph is honestly best describable as a force of nature.
He is.
He has a power that should be beyond.
Should we talk? I'm going to talk about the class system.
Yeah, we'll talk about the class system. Actually, since we're talking about really strong superheroes, we'll talk about the class system. It goes 1 to 5. Well, Jarek knows it a lot better than I do.
Class 1 means you are a Neo or a superhuman that's on par with a man with a gun.
Is there an approximate vague class 0 for people whose superpowers don't register as threats?
Class 0 means specialist or special class.
Or special class. Your power isn't going to alter a combat related encounter.
Yeah, but they have use.
Because there are class 0s that are very useful.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's harder to classify someone with that sort of power.
Mostly,
so they stuck to classifying military use.
Yeah. Class 0 is non-military useful people.
Because the classes are the military classification. They're the Pantheon classification.
Yeah. And class 0 means you're equivalent to a man with a gun, like an assault rifle,
or
not a
class
handgun.
0 doesn't even say you're equivalent to a man with a gun. Class
no,
0
that's
is
class 1.
Yeah, you said that. You just said that it was equivalent. You meant
Class 1 is equivalent.
You said class 0.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
Class 1 is a man with a gun. Class 0 is a man with skills.
Yes. Class 2 is a man with, say, a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher. Someone who can fulfill a specific position that would overcome situations that men with guns cannot.
Yeah.
Normal guns.
Specialists.
Specialists, yes.
Yeah.
Class 3 equates you to a jet or a tank.
You are equivalent to a military vehicle of some sort, basically.
Yes. You can solo pretty much any number of people.
If I were to
with
honestly
guns
put it even more
such.
succinctly, you are no longer small arms.
Yes. You are heavy arms.
Yes. So things that could not normally be carried by a human. You are actually outside of what we can equip humans to do.
Yes.
And this is considering advanced tech.
Yes. The Gauss rifles are vaguely expensive. They may be mostly a John Smith thing.
Oh, okay.
But
fair enough. In any case, class.
They are at least the super Gauss rifles.
So class 3. What is class 3 then?
Class 3 is you are a tank. Class 2 is your sniper rifles. And
yeah, you're right. Sorry. Class 4 is the vaguest tier that they have an issue with.
You can basically solo a military operation or a base.
You can take out a few hundred people in all likelihood.
You're equivalent to a military installation, a aircraft carrier.
No, you know what, Jack? You're equivalent to a small military force.
Yeah.
So not just a tank or whatever, but a tank plus a couple dozen people with guns.
That's why I say you can solo a military operation. You could pull off Desert Storm with one person.
Oh, a full scale
military operation.
Oh, I thought you meant small scale ones.
Well, it varies.
It varies.
But
effectively, your powers.
Once you can pull off military operations by yourself, you are class 4.
Because some people are capable of doing that.
Once you can win a battle by yourself, you are class 4.
Oddly, this may be weird. Just weird note. Oddly, people with powers that are more subtle might actually be able to get class 4 more easily.
Which is why special class 4 exists.
Yes, and there is special class 4, which is the idea that your powers aren't necessarily as outright
in direct combat. Pretty much anyone could kill you.
But the idea that
you do not win at direct combat.
And this also applies for class 5. There's a special class 5 that's the same, but just higher in scale.
And then class 5 is you can win a war.
Yes. There are only a handful. Actually, at the beginning of the show, there are only 4. There are 4 class 5s that are known to the public. And that is Richter, who is a man with strength that registers quite literally on the Richter scale. There is Gregor,
who can
often
change
called
the environment.
Does he have god code name? The one we gave him was just the one I have in my head. Oh, yeah, Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil.
Codename Yggdrasil, often also known as the Domain Wizard by some.
And
he can. It's a very odd power in that he was an environmental scientist, especially for
other world environments in terms of colonizing Mars and other planets.
And he has the ability to reproduce He has the ability to change environmental factors. It's quite strong, and he can do it over quite a large radius. And it ranges from anything such as raising, local air pressure by a few psi to
simulating conditions of the sun and such.
Yes.
At the height of his power. By the time the show starts, he is weakened to class 4.
Because unfortunately, no part of his power allows him to resist the ravages of time. He is an 80 to 90-year-old man, and it shows. Unlike Kristoff, who is an 80 to 90-year-old man, as we get to him, Kristoff, the second class 5, a little less known.
Or the third that we've listed.
Probably
but
more.
The second to be.
Probably more well-known.
Yeah, he is famous, but everyone thinks he's dead.
He occupies the current spot of most infamous man in the world.
Yes.
Basically around the spot what Hitler occupies now.
He takes Hitler's place by the end of World War III.
He is commonly considered the cause of World War III.
And it's not like a commonly considered as in we could not point out the cause of World War III.
As in, no.
We could point out the cause of World War III.
And most people agree pretty distinctly that it was his actions. Certainly, it took a government to start the war, but his actions are what leads to World War III.
Yes. The public reaction to his actions.
By general public knowledge, he is dead. Killed by the end of World War III.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
He killed during
World War III.
By a nuke.
By a nuke, yes. As far as most people are aware, he got, at some point, we dropped a nuclear bomb on him. Not even a tactical one. A full-on, proper, several-mile nuclear bomb. And he was completely obliterated.
He is of the top... For how he survived, he is of what I consider to be one of the top tier feats of a manipulator, is the transferal of consciousness to what you manipulate.
Yes.
Because there is no distinction,
because he has no distinction between himself and any other cells within his range.
And that range exceeds
that of a non-tactical nuke, explicitly.
Yeah. I don't know. Nukes bigger? You would think
tactical nukes are smaller. That's why they're tactical.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, of a non-tactical nuke.
Okay, now
that's why I was saying that. Yeah, I was saying they didn't launch a small nuke at him. They launched a proper several-mile nuke at him.
And it didn't work. His range exceeded it.
Well,
people didn't know that
the U.S. government know that it didn't work.
Yes, because he came back.
And he told them, like, hey.
Yeah, he explained who he was.
Who dropped the nuke on them? That's something we'll get to when we get to the World War III.
Some European country, probably.
Probably Russia.
Russia or even Britain.
Yeah, Britain. Ooh.
One of the countries we would consider to be a good guy.
Yes. Because, note, this is a little early to break it, but America was the bad guys of World War III.
Yeah.
We'll have to edit that out of the first episode.
No. This is a world-building podcast.
You're right. It's not a story podcast.
We'll adapt it. We'll adapt the property to be a comic book that's in order later on. But
you're right. Yeah. But America was the bad guys of World War II.
The whole podcast
and the third and the final super class 5 that is known by average people. Do average people know about the class ratings? I just thought about that. They do. Okay, the government has made these public. It's good publicity because they can say our heroes are class
they can
whatever.
Rate their military power.
Yeah. And the most popular superhero of all time as well.
Worldwide and in America.
We don't have a good superhero name for him yet. I kind of want to call him like Blue Dragon or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That's always the aesthetic I had for him. But a man known as Sonny. Of half Asian descent, grew up in Japan. Short during World War III, probably, actually, given his age.
He came to popularity
'Cause
shortly before World War III. But World War III is where he claimed
I have an issue with that,
popularity.
actually, Jared.
Well, okay. He became known shortly before World War III.
How long did World War III last? Well, given wars, 10 to 20 years.
Probably a decade.
Yeah, that's typical.
Considering the scale of weapons we had available to us during
it wouldn't be that. Yeah, 10 or so
it wouldn't
years.
go 2 decades.
Then yeah. He's in his 50s or 60s at the time that the show starts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Shortly became into public awareness, but probably didn't become the most popular superhero after. Honestly.
After, yeah. Because what happened was, he was a popular superhero. He got hot, he was but a vigilante one. So they gave him amnesty and hired him.
I honestly imagine he refused that offer.
No, that offer was how he what led to him showing up later on.
Oh. Okay. I'll take your word for it.
And the fact that America considered him a traitor is what led is
I will
part
say,
of it.
Jarek, I've determined from just our conversations, thinking back on them, you are the core creative force of this.
Yeah.
Because you came with yours. Because the reason I say this is because on most issues, I will defer to you. This is unrelated to what we're doing right now, but I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So versus kinda my baby.
It's kind of your baby. It's your baby. Like
I'm the mom, you're the dad.
I have babies within.
To make it weird.
Like I have babies within Willverse. Jason's my baby. Ice Guy's my baby. But the universe itself is your baby.
The politics, the greater events.
Yeah. And I contribute. I kind of help flesh out your ideas. But most of the core concepts are yours. Good job, dude. This is an amazing
And
universe.
yeah,
I fucking
Sunny,
love.
who has key manipulation.
Sunny has key manipulation.
How-
And it is actually that weird to everyone else.
His power made key a thing.
His power is arguably, now that I think about it, honestly, one of the
There's
most...
a reason he's class 5.
His power is one of the most... Well, one of the biggest diversions from reality, which is part of what makes him class 5.
Yes.
Because it's a thing that only exists when he's around, but has distinct, measurable properties. But basically he creates an entirely new form of energy that is key.
Yeah. Which is
Because it does not exist for anyone else. No one else can use key.
And in this universe, key is straight up life energy. And in
is-
his case, he uses unused.
Explicitly, also to be more precise, by life energy, potential energy for an organism considering its full lifespan, basically.
Yeah.
Except
and he
that
can
then-
utilize unused life energy as well, which is what makes him so powerful.
Yes, because he can draw on the power of things in the area, in a fairly substantial area.
Yes.
And he is probably considered, honestly, he probably takes the spot of, so there's 4 main
Main
right?
class 5s, yeah.
Who is?
Richter.
Gregor, Christoph, yeah. He's probably considered the 3rd strongest out of those 3? Out of those 4?
Yeah. He can go toe-to-toe with the...
Well, because he beats Richter in a direct fight.
Yes. And he can go toe-to-toe with the other 2.
Yeah. So yeah, he's considered the 3rd strongest hero, but he's easily the most popular because he plays up the hero role. Honestly, he's not even playing it up. It's just the kind of guy he is.
Yes.
He is very much in the Goku to Superman spectrum of sheer human, but it's not that he's infallible. It's just that his base instincts are just...
On a moral code that is...
They're very aligned with the typical moral code.
The moral code you can't argue with.
He is the kind of man that would put his life, knowing how fully valuable he is, in danger to save your average citizen. I think he's at that level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a
honestly,
good guy.
I think
He
that's
is a
something that
swell man
defines...
all around.
That's one of the things that defines superheroes. That's what defines Superman to me. Is that even as smart as he is, Superman knows his life is worth more than the average person.
But
Like,
he would die
literally die
to stop a
save
mugging.
yeah, he would die to stop a mugging. And Sonny is of that level. He would die.
Which, by the way, would be the most hilarious way for Superman to die.
I mean, it basically is in versus the Elite.
Yeah.
It's pretty. No, sorry. Not the Elite.
Doom.
Yeah.
Justice League.
It's
Doom.
practically how he almost dies in Justice League Doom. But enough about the excellent series of animated DC movies that seriously, no, not anyone, everyone who's a fan of superheroes should go watch. Seriously, look them up. They're almost all on YouTube. They're excellent.
Yep.
But
I think that's not
we'll,
quite.
We'll finish up. I'm still.
Any questions you want to ask?
Honestly, there's a few details I kind of want to slam down.
All right.
World War III. Actually, I guess it's a question.
Yeah.
How, like World War II had a massive impact on the economies, culture, everything. I imagine World War III had a similar impact, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because not only were Neos weaponized on a war level,
and this is weaponizing people who can, on an individual level, match military operations.
Well, that's how they got to be able to match military operations.
That's true.
That's when the class system didn't exist before World War III.
Yeah, it was invented during it to describe.
It's when we discovered the full military potential of the superhumans.
Who kicked it off? Honestly, if there was, it should either be Christoph or Richter.
It was probably Christoph.
Yeah. They went.
Richter did most of his stuff. Richter's original appearance was before the class system existed. Christoph invented it, then Richter got raided later.
Richter was basically a terrorist during World War III. He wasn't allied with anyone in particular. He was allied with himself.
Richter was a terrorist before.
Well, he started as a soldier, I imagine.
He came from a war-torn area.
Yeah, and he probably was a soldier.
He was probably a child soldier.
Yeah, but he just quickly abandoned that for his own cause.
Eventually ended up in America, hated it, decided to do terrorist action, got stopped, which led to the popularity of Christoph and Gregor, which led to them being sent to handle the problem that started World War III. And then after World War III happened, or near the end, he made another move.
There are a lot of people, even World War III ended, by the time the setting happened, probably... Actually, there's a question I haven't answered. When did World War III start? What was the range of years?
Probably 30 to 40?
So it's been over for about as long as World War II has been over for now.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about what World War III is to them, what World War II is to us.
Yes, and all the technological advancements and changes.
So actually, 50s or 60s. Again, he would have been only about 20 when he entered it. Sorry, talking about Sonny.
Yeah.
Sonny's the old dude. Not even that old. Okay, random question. Just popped in my head because I was thinking about how old he was. With medical technology, the average human lives to like 150, right?
Probably, especially with neo-medical technology.
Oh God, with neo, I think
the rich live much longer.
Yeah, the rich live to 200 plus years.
Yeah,
easily.
And at a good, not elderly age, and they're not elderly for those 200 years.
No, almost no one is elderly by the time they die at this point.
Well, except for the poor.
Yeah, but even the average person dies at like what? 50
Most people become elderly at age 100 and don't live past 150.
Yeah, but they have like 50 good years of being an old person still.
Yeah.
The rich die young, or seemingly young.
Yeah.
They're too. Honestly, probably the oldest person is probably close to the 300 range.
Yeah.
Actually, no. No one will be around to be that old.
That is true.
I just thought I realized that. Because the oldest person now is 100.
They have the potential to live to the 300.
Yes, they have people range. They have people in... The rich people are currently like in their 80s or 90s, but literally show almost no signs of age.
Yeah.
And there have been a couple people who have lived
because there are Neos out there with medical power. but they are singular and can only help so many people in a day.
Yeah.
They are
actually, honestly, probably one of the rarest powers is the ability to heal other people.
I think
And
at one point I
valuable.
considered making the richest person in the world by this point.
I still
Neo.
think it should be.
Yeah. There was going to be a Neo who had the ability to pass on healing properties to other objects, which can be sold.
I think that should be the richest person in the world.
Which can be sold and effectively act as cure-alls for diseases
Yes.
and such. You take a literal sugar
You can't
pill.
heal physical damage, but basically anything
You take
else.
a literal sugar pill and it will heal any disease you have. He's the
Right.
richest person in the world.
For obvious reasons. Of the richest people in the world pay him bank. Or actually,
Also, it costs them nothing to make these pills.
yeah, they sell them for like 10 a pop.
Or however much a pop.
No, probably way more than 10.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, they sell them for like 50, 60 a pop, and he's still easily the richest
It costs
person in the world.
required no research cost.
Yep.
No protection costs.
And this is the
and can cure any
inherent
disease.
And that's honestly a great example of the inherent inequality that a lot of people deal with. The fact that there are people with superpowers. Because some guy, literally just because he happens to be probably a good person, given the power he had.
No, he probably had cancer.
Oh, you're right, and he probably came up with it to save himself.
Yeah.
He's probably a Actually, otherwise he wouldn't be the richest person in the world.
He's a greedy bastard.
Yeah. But someone who just has the luck to come up with the power to heal people. And of course.
And not only heal people, but be able to transfer that healing property to something that can be
Which
distributed.
is even something.
Which is even luckier and rarer.
And which is something that even Kristoff can't do.
Yeah. Kristoff can heal anyone within his range, but he can't extend his range by applying it to an object, which can then be used later.
He can sell it as a product. Though ironically, unlike most CEOs, he does not have a simple job of just directing things.
That's the other thing.
He's not even the CEO of this company. He's just the highest paid employee and the owner.
He's the owner of the company. There's probably...
He wouldn't be the CEO.
It's not even like a
main
company in
production
modern
person.
standards. It's him and distribution. That's
him.
all he has to pay for.
Yeah, it's him, a plant that makes sugar
He
pills.
is the plant, yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying a plant that makes sugar pills.
Yeah.
And
The distribution.
yeah, and distribution. Like,
It's
that's
the
why
cheapest
he's so
company.
rich.
It's the cheapest company out there, and it makes
His
the most
margins
money.
are huge.
Yeah, that's
He
why
actually probably has the largest margins. That's the other thing. Not only is he the richest person in the world, he has the largest. His company has the largest margins of any company in history. Because the cost is cents per pill, the profit is hundreds per pill.
Yeah. Does he advertise it as a cure-all, or does he just sell the
sells
same
individual
pill
ones.
as different cures?
He sells the same one as
So
different.
the common cold costs $10 per pill. The cure for cancer costs $500
But they're the
per
exact
pill.
same pill.
But they're the exact same pill.
But he doesn't let that be known. Because he
Yeah.
has enough money to pay off anyone in the FDA, etc., to say that it's not the same.
Plus, he's good for the American economy. He's the one thing internationally that America still stands well on.
Yep, they're like, well, we can't deny this guy that they
So
have
they're
a guy who can cure
perfectly
any
willing
disease.
to lie about what's in it. And even if people analyze it
Does
and
the
find
government
out they
know?
were all sugar pills.
The government, honestly, the government probably just knows.
Yeah, they know.
They just don't care.
They don't care.
Yeah.
And people have analyzed it and found out that they're all in fact sugar pills. But this is the age of Neos. That
So
explains nothing.
That's not proof. Because the thing is, they distinctly do cure.
For all they know, it still
incurable.
costs them more effort to cure cancer than cold. But it doesn't.
It doesn't. It's all the same for him. Can't heal wounds, I imagine?
You can accelerate your healing of a wound.
But not actually directly.
But it still has to be bandaged up, stitched up, and then you take the pill and it will heal in a matter of weeks.
Instead of,
Months.
Yeah, okay. Any last things for the intro stuff? I feel like, is there anything else we would need to introduce as a basic concept? We've introduced characters, basic setting, honestly a little more than basic setting. We've introduced the Argonauts. Oh, there's one character we have not touched that definitely should be introduced in a basic setting introduction like this. The leader, not to post-time script actually, but the effective leader, the senior
member,
the most,
not counting Kristoff
honestly,
and Gregor.
The current most popular superhero in America.
Yes.
manpower.
As the public calls
As the public calls him, manpower. His official government designation is Hydra. Though I think he probably prefers manpower.
Yes.
But a man quite aptly named John Smith, who has the power
of multiplication.
Unlimited, perfect multiplication. However, he is very distinctly a normal peak human.
With training.
With training, yes. But he is distinctly a very normal human.
He can multiply himself.
He can multiply himself
and his clones
infinitely.
can multiply
and
himself.
His clones are exact copies, including the ability to multiply. And they all last forever.
Until they die.
Well, yeah, they last as though they were just humans that came into life at that point.
I think when they die, if you copy equipment and take it away from him, the equipment dies.
You think that there should be a disappearing component?
Because otherwise they can
they
can infinitely multiply their best
And
weapons.
the other power he has that's nice is that he multiplies things on him as a part of him.
Pretty much, yeah.
So they will kind of disintegrate or become useless
when you take them off his person.
Because, unfortunately, that's not how he thinks about it. But John Smith, he's describable as both the most and least average human being possible. Because he can fit in perfectly in almost any scenario in America. He is the most average American. He is a very... You could swap him for an average person in the crowd and you wouldn't realize you had done it, almost.
He is bland as shit.
He is the typical Man in Black, rather.
Mm-hmm. Well, he is the Men in Black.
He is also the Men in Black, as is quite nice. Originally a university professor, after he used his power to gain several degrees in school. One of them was hired out as part of the Argonauts for the obvious potential of being an unlimited army, though the government is unwilling to use them for that purpose, simply because they realized quickly that the clones all still have to be housed, fed, kept satisfied, etc., as they are all... None of them are under control of any other...
Officially on his profile, it is Class 5 ?
Yes. And even to the U.S. government, the full number of him is unknown. They have a fairly good estimate for how many of them exist from the clone that they took, but they have no idea how many exist in total.
Yeah.
Because it'd be too hard to keep track of that many people.
They don't know how prodigious of a multiplier the others of him
have
turned out to be.
Yes. The original John Smith, but the most notable quality, arguably, John Smith, is the fact that he can basically beat anybody. He can learn, as far as they can tell, though he can't learn everything at once, he can do almost any individual task he is trained to do. He was able to fully master several college degrees and to become a storied soldier for the United States military. However,
mind you, all those feats were accomplished by different copies of him.
Yes. But if you take him as a single aggregate, he's the most accomplished human being on Earth, most likely.
Most likely, yeah. If you count every feat as his feat.
At least currently alive.
Well, I mean, if you count everything any clone of his has accomplished, he is unequivocally, undeniably the most accomplished person in the world, in history.
Because he has
hundreds. Thousands.
Thousands, honestly, at this point.
Possibly millions. They don't know.
That's the problem, yes. Thousands to millions
of lifetimes
of John Smiths. All the ones created by the one that they sort of adopted. He kind of willingly gave himself up to the government.
He made a clone for them to take.
For a large continuing paycheck for the original John Smith.
Yeah.
Assumably the original John Smith. Again, his powers make it difficult to know for certain, because there is not even a genetic difference between any two of them.
If he's injured and he makes a clone, the clone will come out injured.
Yes. It is a perfect, absolute clone. Where is he? You good, baby?
You want to call it there?
Yeah. So we'll call that for now.
That's the introduction to the Argonauts universe.
Thanks for listening to all this rambling as we attempt to kind of put together what we've thought of over quite a long time for this.
Multitudes of 10 of conversations.
Yes. We hope this was interesting or at least entertaining. Hopefully you guys listen again.
Yeah.